And yesterday was a great example of just really, in some respects, just the cultural aspect of that role, which he's done and continues to do impeccably. So let's start with clip number one. There's a press conference yesterday. He's not just, of course, he's responding to the Trump garbage, but he's responding more globally. He's maybe even indirectly responding to the thought experiment crowd, although hopefully he's the president. Hopefully he's never even heard of them. He has too many important things to do. And at first he's talking about, we are not confused about who the enemy is. Let's listen to this sound.
For a while now, the main contribution of some of my friends on the other side of the aisle have made in the fight against ISIL is to criticize this administration and me for not using the phrase radical Islam. That's the key, they tell us. We can't beat ISIL unless we call them radical Islamists. What exactly would using this label accomplish? What exactly would it change? Would it make ISIL less committed to trying to kill Americans? Would it bring in more allies? Is there a military strategy that is served by this? The answer is none of the above. Calling a threat by a different name does not make it go away. This is a political distraction. Since before I was president, I've been clear about how extremist groups have perverted Islam to justify terrorism. As president, I have repeatedly called on our Muslim friends and allies at home and around the world to work with us to reject this twisted interpretation of one of the world's great religions. There's not been a moment in my 7.5 years as president where we have not been able to pursue a strategy because we didn't use the label radical Islam. Not once has an advisor of mine said, man, if we really use that phrase, we're going to turn this whole thing around. Not once.
That's great.
So if someone seriously thinks that we don't know who we're fighting, if there's anyone out there who thinks we're confused about who our enemies are, that would come as a surprise to the thousands of terrorists who we've taken off the battlefield.
So that's exactly right, and it's beautifully put, and it's funny. I mean, you know, that's all the sort of best qualities of Obama. When you look at the response to that again you'll get from like the thought experiment crowd, it's no different than what Doug is saying. It's just that the reason you have to say it is because there is some metaphysical truth about Islam that just must be said. It's interesting because even if you accepted that premise, it still doesn't exactly explain why you need to say it, other than in some type of sort of like, you know, kind of middle school fashion. Like, you just need to say it, man. There's no practical explanation of the upshot of it. So when you're in a situation where if you have any information on the nature of these things, you understand that it's not one solid static thing. You get that that's incredibly primitive, basic at best view. Then you really have to ask yourself, why are you so fanatically committed to engaging in rhetoric that is both intellectually totally basic at best and at worst profoundly counterproductive in the process of engaging in cultural counterterrorism, in observing basic human rights, and building an American civic culture? I understand some people just hate religion and they're not enamored of the big, you know, Abrahamic faiths, and I totally get that. And religion obviously still plays a very destructive role in many people's lives. And there is a threat that comes from specific groups that are aligned with a version of Muslim ideology. Fine. We all know this. So how do you want to deal with it? And to even begin, I mean, the fact that the president can outline that in 2 minutes and answer a million screeds and a million pseudo-intellectual books and a million, you know, somber foreign policy addresses that amount to nothing should tell you all you need to know.
Hello, you. I'm Sam Seder. Looking for smart progressive talk that is occasionally amusing? Well, subscribe to our YouTube feed. Subscribe to our podcast. Like us on Facebook. And just generally enjoy us.